Consciousness, Self-Awareness, Who Are We Really? By Dr. Maryann Miller. First, are you asking the right questions? At some point we ask ourselves, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? Why am I here? Who am I? Georgia Lambert says these questions shape the person we are, and the civilization in which we live. But most people focus on, what am I to do? Before finding out, who am I? While individually we're asking these questions, should these same questions be asked by organizations, businesses and even nations? As we begin to try and answer, who am I, we find ourselves examining consciousness. We accept that we have consciousness, but it's important to know we are conscious beings who inhabit a physical body, and not the other way around. Also important is knowledge that we possess a higher consciousness than that with which we ordinarily operate on a daily basis, and it is higher consciousness with which we are primarily interested here. As you develop your higher consciousness, it will eventually guide your life and all of your relationships. Higher consciousness operates through your heart and head, and is that higher instinct that enables you to recognize and submit to your soul, instead of just your ego. Although this metaphor is incomplete. Consciousness is like the ocean. We live, move, and have our beingness in it. Consciousness is who we are and who we will forever remain. Just as you can separate a drop of water from the ocean and it will no longer look or have the full power of the ocean's properties still remain in the drop. Alone, it doesn't have the ability to produce great, powerful, pounding waves. The drop must remember itself to have the power of the ocean. The more you remember who you truly are, the more powerful, loving, and wise you become. Some physicists say the universe is a hologram. If you create a hologram of a rose and then cut the hologram in half while shining another laser on it, both halves will contain the entire rose. If you cut those halves in half again, each of those halves will contain the entire rose. No matter how many times you cut them in half, a whole rose will always appear. Consciousness operates like the hologram, and like a hologram, each portion of consciousness contains the whole of consciousness within it. So even though it may not be apparent, your individual portion of consciousness is an exact miniature of the whole of consciousness. Because of this, any minute change in the hologram produces a change in the entire hologram. Becoming self-aware. Once again, using the ocean metaphor, before becoming conscious of self, the water drop did not distinguish itself from any other drop in the ocean of consciousness. However, with self-realization, it became aware of itself as an individualized drop of water consciousness within the ocean of consciousness. With this individualization also came a sense of separation, aloneness and lack. Separateness is the foundation for all of humanity's fear, sense of lack, anger, and any other challenge we encounter. It is humanity's purpose to once again become conscious of its oneness with all consciousness, yet still retain consciousness of self. This higher state of consciousness is attained through your individual efforts. Higher consciousness can be likened to a matrix or webbing of energy that transcends everyday thinking. When in resonance with higher consciousness, you have the ability to reach greater levels of awareness, intelligence, inspiration, purpose, love, and wisdom. This matrix of energy is accessed when, through conscious effort, you establish a resonance with its higher frequencies. Accessing higher consciousness brings about a transcendence or wholeness of body, mind and spirit. It transforms the 5 physical senses and generates higher knowledge which leads to wisdom regarding life, death, purpose and the universe itself. Higher consciousness produces an inner knowing, peace and oneness that creates the ability to meet and successfully move beyond life's challenges. Higher consciousness is even more powerful when accessed during group work. In the book, Sacred Hoops, basketball coach, Phil Jackson says, there is an energy that's unleashed when players put their egos aside and work toward a common goal. A powerful group intelligence emerges that is greater than the coach's ideas or those of any individual on the team. What is that powerful energy and intelligence that emerges in a collective when the ego is set aside? How is it experienced? When a player surrenders his self-interest for the greater good, his fullest gifts as an athlete are manifested. He's not trying to force a shot, or do something that's not in his repertoire of basketball moves, or impose his personality on the team. It's funny, by playing within his natural abilities, he activates a higher potential beyond his abilities, a higher potential for the team. It changes things for everybody. All of a sudden, the rest of the team can react instinctively to what that player is doing. And it just kind of mushrooms out from there. The whole begins to add up to more than the sum of its parts. We see this a lot in critical situations. When players are totally focused on the team goal, their efforts can create chain reactions. It's as if they become totally connected to one another, in sync with one another, like 5 fingers on one hand. When one finger moves, the rest of them all react to it. From Phil Jackson. When operating at lower frequencies of consciousness, it's as if you're looking at the world through a clouded lens. You have limited understanding of the situation, problem or event, awareness or perception, knowledge, wisdom, love, power. When operating at higher frequencies of consciousness, the structure or frequency of matter changes. The higher you go, the cleaner the lens, so you develop more understanding of the situation, challenge or event, awareness, perception, mindfulness, knowledge, wisdom, love, power, purpose. All matter is composed of different frequencies within the infinite consciousness matrix. The difference of one physical object from another is its frequency. Different frequency equals different appearance. If you change the frequency, the structure of matter will change. All matter originates and exists by virtue of a force which brings the particles of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter. Max Planck, German theoretical physicist whose work on quantum theory won him the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1918 with self-realization, our frequency changed. Our frequency, as a drop of water, is different from the frequency of the entire ocean. Because of this, we erroneously feel separated and diminished. This feeling of separation produces the lower frequencies of fear, anxiety, lack, guilt, anger and all other limiting conditions. The more we are attached to these negative feelings, the more real they become to us. When authority figures or leaders are able to convince us to live in these lower frequency states, we actually change the hologram and help them gain power, authority and control over us. If, on the other hand, we don't succumb to fear, anxiety, lack, guilt, anger and other limiting conditions, and determine to build trust, opportunity, inclusiveness, empathy, joy, and prosperity consciousness, we also influence and change the hologram. So the question is, which frequencies of consciousness do you want to live in, and, if you want to change your consciousness, how do you go about it? How consciousness operates. We are, have always been, and always will be an integral, innate part of the consciousness matrix. Everything that exists, by virtue of its frequency, is a part of the webbing of the matrix. Therefore, we are connected to everything else that exists. This is the reason biofeedback machines can register even insignificant changes when thought is directed to that with which it is connected. Consciousness creates matter and fashions our reality. Consciousness designs, connects, and affects the physical body through this etheric webbing. The etheric body is but an etheric web of energy composed of myriads of threads of force, or tiny streams of energy, held in relation to the emotional and mental bodies and to the soul by their coordinating effect. These streams of energy, in their turn, have an effect on the physical body and swing it into activity of some kind or another, according to the nature and power of whatever type of energy may be dominating the etheric body at any particular time. How can we know when we're in rapport with higher consciousness? I've always been a huge fan of Jiminy Cricket. He's Pinocchio's conscience. Jiminy always lets Pinocchio know when he's not living up to his highest potential. Conscience is an awareness of inner or higher knowledge, truth and wisdom. Conscience is sometimes felt as an energetic love that steadily aligns us with our higher selves. It initiates an irresistible urge to allow higher consciousness to be our guide in all situations. It opens a channel for the systemic energies of love, wisdom, and the conscience of love is felt flowing through us, touching the conscience of everything else, adjusting its rhythm and inducing a temporary state of harmony with the whole. Freedom is felt too, because this enables us to lift our eyes above the problems of the personality. By Alice Bailey. Joy is also an indicator of invocative living. Joy lets us know we are in rapport with our higher selves and are living our life with purpose, love and wisdom flowing through us freely.